Good morning, everybody, and welcome. We are going to get started in about 2 minutes just to give time for everybody to get onto the webinar here. Hope everyone's having a great Tuesday morning. We'll give it about 1 more minute and then we'll go ahead and get started with today's webinar. Well, good morning and welcome everybody to Online Reviews 101. I am Jenny Tukeski, the Programming and Communications Manager here for the Better Business Bureau Midwest Plains. First of all, just wanted to say thank you for taking the time out of your schedule today to come and join us for this webinar. The session is being taped today, and later on in the week, we will send you not only a copy of the webinar, but also of the presentation that Myra will be presenting so that you can use it just for a future reference. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please just go ahead and leave them in the chat or in the Q&A section, and we will answer those throughout the presentation this morning. With that, we are very excited to have with us our special guest, Myra Bollingue, the Executive Vice President of the Review Solution at Third Coast Interactive. Myra oversees the company's strategies and initiatives, working closely with global brands, collaborating with National Association and business organizations, as well as managing the partnership with the Better Business Bureau. Today, she will show how reviews can positively impact your business, the best ways for asking for the reviews, and also the effective strategies for responding to not only positive but negative reviews as well. So Myra, welcome, and it is all yours. You're muted, Myra.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. And again, thank you for everyone for attending today's webinar. As she said, this is going to be about your online reputation and mostly your online reviews as a business. So to start off, why are online reviews important? Well, typically things tend to be important to businesses that are important to customers, right? And so based on these stats, and again, these are sourced from Bright Local's Local Consumer Survey 2025, 96% of consumers are reading online reviews. And on top of that, almost 3/4 of those same consumers use 2 or more review sites when researching businesses. And so, of course, that lets you know that online reviews have become an integral part of a consumer's experience when they're trying to decide which businesses to use or to give money to. Okay, not just that. So, of course, yes, people are reading reviews and making sure that you have them, but it's not enough to simply have reviews, because how recent your reviews are also very important. And while I'm, kind of talking about consumer behavior on this webinar, I encourage everybody who is listening in or who's watching to think about your own behavior as a consumer, because, while you are maybe own a business or you work for a business, you're consumers as well, right? And so I think a lot of your behavior as a consumer is going to sound pretty familiar when I talk about what consumers in general tend to do or what their proclivities are, right? So in this case, 92% of consumers care when a review is written. So that's basically all. It's essentially the same type of consumers that are reading reviews actually pay attention to when they were written. And it makes sense, because if you think about it, I mean, I know for me, when I'm reading customer reviews online, I tend to look at reviews that were written a long time ago. I tend to take them with a grain of salt, because as you know, so many things can happen within a business, even in a short time frame. They could have completely different management, completely different policies. Maybe they've changed their prices, they're offering different products and services. And so what people do is they tend to look at reviews that are the most recent because they assume, and probably rightfully so, that the people who have written reviews the most recently are the ones that are going to have the most similar experiences to them. And these stats really bear that out. And so if you look at here, almost half, or 47%, of consumers really feel that a review needs to be written within the past month for it to have an impact on their decision. Okay, and of course, star rating absolutely matters. So again, 72% of consumers will only consider businesses with a 3.5 star rating or higher. And again, I encourage you to think about your own behavior as a consumer and consider whether you would ever willingly use a business that you knew had a 3.5 star rating online when it comes to reviews. I think for a lot of people, the only way they'd even consider a business had such a low star rating as if it was somebody who's maybe they knew the owner personally, or someone in their family knew the owner personally. But for the most part, if you're considering multiple businesses and doing research online, you probably eliminate first those businesses with lower star ratings. Okay. And then, of course, on the flip side to that, it's not enough to have a good star rating. Consumers need, or at least 69% of consumers need 20 or more reviews to trust the review rating that they are looking at, which again, of course, makes sense. I know if I see a 5 star rating for a business or close to a 5 star rating, but they only have 2 or 3 reviews, I also take that with a grain of salt because it makes me think, okay, well, that's not as accurate of a picture as maybe looking at a business that has a 4.8 star rating, but then they have 50 reviews online. Okay. The other thing that you're going to see a lot more of is consumers really care about businesses responding to their reviews. So it's not enough to have a good recent multiple reviews online. You also need to be responding to the reviews that you are getting. So 89% of consumers are more likely to use a business that's responding to all the reviews, and 81% expect the responses to be within a week of when those reviews were left. And so again, it kind of is starting to paint a picture that getting reviews online, and especially quality reviews online that are going to make potential customers want to do business with you, takes a little bit more effort, right? So it's not enough to just passively get reviews. You have to make sure that you're getting reviews constantly, because they have to be recent, and obviously that they're good reviews, which means you have to be offering, fantastic business services and products, and also that you're responding to the reviews that you're getting. So the good news is 96% of basically the same consumers that talk about and stress how reviews are important to them are also open to writing a review for a business. And so that is the good news when it comes to talking about all of this. And you guys are in luck because we are going to talk about not just tips or tricks that you can adopt in order to get more reviews for your business, but also a tool that's available to accredited businesses to make getting reviews a lot easier. So I'll stop here to see if we have any questions before I move on. There's going to be a little detour coming up, and I'll just quickly talk about review sites, because we get a lot of questions about review sites whenever I talk about online reviews, and rightfully so. And so I won't spend too much time here, again, because the webinar is being recorded and this presentation is going to be made available to you all, so you can grab these facts at a later date. But I did just want to point out a few quick things. Number one is that if you weren't aware, BBB, you can get reviews on your BBB profile. So on bbb.org, you can get reviews for businesses, and you can write reviews for businesses. BBB does not allow anonymous reviews. They do require customers to verify their information, which is very important because it cuts down on fraudulent reviews, or maybe people trying to write a fake review for your business from a competitor or a disgruntled employee. They do give you 3 business days before a review is published, which you can see is going to be a little bit different than some of the other review sites out there. But what that does allow, because they're allowing that little buffer between when a review is submitted and when it's published, is it allows the business to leave a comment before the review is published. And so we'll talk about that more later on how that can be advantageous to your business. Now compare that to, and I just chose 3 non-industry specific review sites, Google, Yelp, and Facebook, that get a lot of reviews. All of these, of course, require some sort of account. So in the case of Facebook, for a business to be able to get Facebook reviews, they have to enable reviews using their business Facebook page. But again, all of them require an account on the part of the customer. So you have to have a Google account, a Yelp account, or a Facebook account to be able to leave a review. And it looks like, oh, Jenny has a great comment. So when you receive multiple reviews, should you personalize each review with a specific thank you, or is a general response okay to respond with? That is a great question. And that's really going to depend on, number one, the type of business that you're in, and number two, the volume of reviews that you're receiving. So I think for businesses that have a pretty prolonged process when they're working with a customer. So but by the time, the product is finished, you would have worked with a customer for several months. So for instance, maybe a contractor that did like a custom build job on your home, you'd expect them to have a little bit more of a customized response when you leave them a review. So on the flip side, if you are a business where the types of products and services you offer to your customers require a longer period of time where you're working with a customer more closely, then I would say that your responses probably need to be a little bit more custom. If you are a high volume type of business, and where your interactions with your customers aren't as, prolonged and you don't spend as much time with them, then it's okay maybe to go with a generic response. However, even if you're going to go with a generic response, I would still maybe have like 4 or 5 that you cycle through. So you're not using the same one over and over again, and you're not using the same one consecutively. So if you have like basically come up with a good solid handful of templates that you cycle through when you're responding to good reviews. But that's a great question, Jenny. And I hope that that addresses what you were asking. Okay, so again, going back to review sites, if you guys see here, and if you guys had a chance to kind of read over the bullet points, I'm not going to go through all of them, but really what I wanted to point out is, for the most part, major review sites, such as the ones you see here, don't allow anonymous reviews. You do have to have an account with each review site to be able to leave a review on them. But for the most part, all of them do allow the reviews to be published immediately, which, if you remember, is in contrast to the BBB, which essentially has that at least 3-day buffer, where as a business owner, you have the opportunity to respond before the review is published. On these review sites, that's not really the case. So sometimes a review could be up for several days before you realize it and before you even have the opportunity to respond. And then, of course, Yelp has a kind of a not very transparent algorithm in which they determine which reviews are considered recommended. The thing that why that's so important is, for Yelp, recommended reviews are the ones where they factor into your overall Yelp rating. So you could have multiple great reviews, but if they're not recommended, it's not going to factor into your Yelp rating, and vice versa. And if that's something that you're struggling with as a business, we have a few businesses that we work with that are really trying to figure out how they can get more of their better reviews to be recommended by Yelp so that it's factored into their Yelp rating. You can certainly send us a message after the webinar, and we can discuss specifically what strategies you can undertake so that the algorithm can start working in your favor. Any questions on that? Okay. All right. And so we talk about the previous review sites that I had up there, and of course, Google really gets the vast majority of reviews, and they get a huge, huge volume of reviews, partially because they're also a search engine. So when people are searching for businesses or doing research on a business, they see that Google Business Profile panel where they can leave reviews and read reviews for businesses. However, consumers trust BBB reviews the most. And so this is important for a couple of reasons. Number one, this means that you don't need that many reviews on your BBB profile as a business for it to have a great influence. I think the downside of Google getting so many reviews and having the volume of reviews that they do is customers start to expect a lot of reviews on Google. And so it's not enough to have 10 or 15 reviews on your Google business profile. You have to have 50 or 60, depending on the industry that you're in and where you're located. Whereas on BBB, maybe it only takes 5 reviews to have the kind of impact that 50 reviews would have. And so again, that can work out in your favor. And again, all things being equal, 50 Google reviews can have the same impact as 10 BBB reviews because customers do trust BBB reviews the most. Having touched on all of that, BBB's partnered with us, the Review Solution, to provide accredited businesses like you with an app to specifically help with customer reviews. And in this case, it's BBB customer reviews. And so it's very simple. So it's an app that you as the business download. So your customer does not have to download anything. And this is what it looks like. So all you have to do is enter your customer's name, their mobile number, hit send, that's it. So name, number, send. You can see in this example that the top field has Third Coast Interactive, which is my company's name. Your company's name is going to replace that instead. And again, I want to iterate that this is something your business downloads. It's not something that your customer has to download. They don't even have to know that there is an app that you're using to get reviews. Okay. And in addition to that, there is a feature. So if you do have a lot of your customers' contact information on your phone, which a lot of smaller businesses do have, if you enable the feature which allows the app access to your contacts, you can pull in those contacts directly. So you're not even having to manually type out your customer's name and phone number. You just start typing out their name and select from the drop down of your own contacts to see which customers you want to send that review request to. So again, name, number, hit send, or start typing in the name and select from the drop down menu, and the customer will receive this text instantly. And as you can see, the text is going to ask them to leave a review on your BBB profile. So it's going to be personalized with your customer's name. So it's essentially going to reflect the name that you typed into the app. Thank you for choosing. It's going to have your company's name on there as well. And would you be so kind as to leave us a BBB review? And that's it. So this whole process from you typing in your customer's name and phone number to them receiving that text message probably takes 30 seconds, minute tops. It's taken me longer to explain it than it would take for you all to actually execute it, right? Okay. And then when the customer clicks the link in the text message, they're taken directly to leave you a BBB review. It's that simple. So again, the whole point of the app is to remove as many roadblocks as possible for the business, but also for the customer. And so in this case, the customer is not having to search for your BBB profile and figure out where on your BBB profile they have to leave a review. When they click the link, it takes them directly where they need to go. And so essentially the only thing that your customer has to do is actually write that review. Okay, so why would you use this app? Well, again, it's very quick and easy. As you can see, I demonstrated it. Your customer doesn't have to download anything. You just enter your name or their name, the mobile number, and hit send. Your customer just clicks the link in the text to be able to leave a review. This app is going to just use text messages as a way to request reviews from your customers. And so as you know, sending text gets a better response rate than sending emails. So not only do they get open at a much, much higher rate, and in fact, close to 100%, but they also have a 45% response rate when it comes to people actually responding, interacting with text messages. And then the other thing too is anybody who gets a review using the app process, the reviews that they get through the app is going to be pre-verified. And what that means is, if you remember a few slides back, I talked about the BBB verifying customer information before they allow a review to be published. What that looks like from the app is they're simultaneously able to validate the mobile number when the customer submits a review, because again, they would not have been able to receive the link if the number was invalid, and they would not have been able to click on the link if the phone number was invalid. And so by them being able to click that link in the text message, it's going to simultaneously validate that mobile number, which means they're not going to have to take that additional step verifying their contact information. So again, it's one more way that it speeds up the process for your customers to leave you a review, making it even more likely that they do it. Because again, as you know, anytime you add steps to a process, especially on the consumer side, it lowers the probability that they're going to complete whatever it is you want them to do. And then, of course, because the app does come with a dashboard, you can track all the review requests that's going to be sent out by anyone in your company using the dashboard that comes with the app. So any questions on that? Great. And so we talked about the tool that's available to you as an accredited business. And now we'll talk about how you incorporate that into actually getting reviews. And so these are just some tips and tricks that I've learned from working with businesses since 2012 in getting reviews for their business. So whenever possible, ask at the point of service. This is going to be, for the most part, your customers are going to be the happiest when they receive your product or service. This is also when they're the most likely to leave you a review. Think about just your own behavior just the past week, and think about how many different businesses you've potentially interacted with in the past week. And on top of that, how many of those same businesses you left a review for, even if your experience was pleasant. The answer is probably going to be close to zero. And it's because, again, people interact with so many different businesses and they come to expect good service, right? Good. And for the most part, businesses do provide good products and services. And so it doesn't stick out as much in your mind. And so you're not really going to be likely to leave a review unless, of course, the business asks you right when you're receiving that product or service. Now, on the flip side, if somebody were unhappy with the business, and even if that interaction was a month later, if you ask them to recall it, they probably remember exactly how upset they were with a particular business. And so again, the reason we emphasize asking at the point of service is, especially with your happy customers, this is going to be when they're the most likely to actually want to leave a review for your business. And the further away they get from that interaction, the less likely they're going to submit that review online. Now, what that looks like in practice can certainly differ based on the type of business you have and the type of interactions you have with your customers. This middle column here is very easy to adapt for contractor types of businesses. But of course, feel free to change it according to your approach with your customers. And it looks something like this. Let's say you just finished cleaning a customer's carpet in their home, right? At the end of the job, you come to them, you say something along the lines of, customer reviews have become really impactful for businesses like mine. Would you mind leaving a review? And of course, for the most part, if you feel compelled to ask them, they probably are fine with leaving a review for you, especially since you're asking them in person. Now, you make sure that they have their cell phone on them. You take the app out, you put in your name, their number, and they hit send, and they should get that text immediately. And this does a couple of things. Number one, they're getting the text right then and there while you're looking at them. Number two, you should be able to tell if they received a text. Their phone will either buzz or make some sort of noise. And then you can confirm that they received the text because they're right there in front of you. And what that does is there's already an implied obligation to leave a review, right? Because they receive the text message, you know that they received the text message, and they know that you know they received the text message. So having said all that, tell them to open up the text, click the link, and then this is the key part, right? This is the important part of this whole interaction. When you tell them to click the link in the text message that you just sent them, let them know that you're going to make sure everything looks good one last time and then walk away. And the reason this is important is number one, it's not awkward for you because you're not standing there watching your customer leave you a review. And for them, they probably feel a little bit more comfortable to be honest about the review, right? So you don't want them to feel obligated to leave you a fake positive review at that point. You want them to actually feel like they can be honest in what they're saying. And so in this case, you're not sitting there watching them and they don't feel awkward with you standing there because you have the opportunity to then walk away. And of course, while you're gone, you might as well take that chance to actually double check and make sure it looks good, right? So make sure that you cleaned up after yourself, you didn't leave anything behind, that whatever it is that you've performed for the customer actually adheres to the standards that you've set for yourself in your business. Give it a few minutes, come back. At that point, ideally, they would have written your review while you were gone. And so this is a win-win. And so by the time you're leaving your job site, they would have left you a review, but you didn't sit there and watch them as they were doing it. And again, this can be an easier approach depending on the type of interactions you have with your customers. You can adapt it as you need to. If it's something that you would like to work on, coming up with something like that for your business, definitely you and I, you can contact us after the webinar and we can work with you on coming up with the correct strategy. And then, of course, something that we get all the time from businesses, especially with bigger team members, make asking for reviews a part of your process. So one thing that we get all the time is, okay, we have this tool, but my employees don't want to use it. Success comes from the top down. Certainly, if you just make requesting reviews a part of your procedures, so it's not something they even have to think about. It's no different than having clock-in policies or any kind of policies that you have for your employees. It's going to make them more successful in incorporating it into their daily routines, and it's going to be easier for you to hold them accountable. So it's easier for them, easier for you. Nobody has to think about it. It's just something that's part of their job. Okay. Now, having said all that, don't ever offer money, discounts, or gifts to your customers in exchange for writing reviews. And you're probably going to come back to me and let me know, okay, but I do see businesses offering that all the time, and that doesn't mean they're supposed to be doing it. Number one, it is against the Better Business Bureau's policies when it comes to getting reviews. Number two, the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, is not something that they encourage, and they don't allow that. And in fact, they've talked about instituting fines for businesses that are pretty egregious in terms of exchanging something for reviews. And it is also against the terms and conditions of a lot of the major review sites. So it's against Google's terms, Yelp's, and basically a lot of the sites that you're going to want to get reviews on also do not like you to offer something in exchange for writing reviews. And it's because they think that, of course, it erodes that authenticity of that review. They think that because customers are getting something in exchange for review, they feel obligated to leave a positive review. And so that kind of defeats the purpose of the review to begin with. Now, I say this, and there is going to be an exception in terms of, if you wanted to offer a free product or service in exchange for honest feedback, because you truly do want to see if it's a product or service you should start offering. This tends to be a lot more common in the health and beauty space because they offer, free products or samples of products for their loyal customers to be able to try. However, in those cases, and you've also probably seen this too, the review itself states that they received the product that they're reviewing in exchange for an honest review. So in those cases, you do have to explicitly state that, or the customer has to explicitly state that in their reviews. And of course, for these businesses that are exchanging $50 off of the next service for a review. That's not something that customers are disclosing on their reviews, because if they did, you would be less likely to trust that review as real, or as authentic or as honest. So again, if you ever caught offering something in exchange for reviews, a lot of review sites either will put a warning on your profile saying that you've been caught exchanging or offering something in exchange for reviews, or they might just delete your reviews or ban you from the profile altogether. So again, don't do it. I know you've seen businesses doing it. That does not mean it's something that they're allowed to do. And if they were ever to get caught, there's obviously consequences for that. So I do just want to point that out before moving on. Some other practices that I recommend, depending on the type of business that you have: give everybody in your company the ability to request reviews. Basically, anybody that has any kind of interaction with your customers or potential customers should have the ability to get feedback. I think you guys can all agree that sometimes it's 100% dependent on the person that a customer had an interaction with on how they feel about your company, even if they think you're offering great product at a great price. If they encountered an employee that wasn't the most friendly, or on the flip side, maybe they're not the biggest fan of your product or service, or they encountered some issues along the way. However, the employees they dealt with were unfailingly polite and courteous, it completely is going to change how they feel about your company. And so that's why you should give everybody the ability to request feedback. Okay. Put one person or department in charge of reviews. That doesn't mean you have to hire somebody specifically to manage reviews, but it is helpful to just have it one person's responsibility. Even if there's other things that they're responsible for, everyone knows that it's this one person or this one department that's managing reviews. Again, it makes it easy for everybody to know that it's this one person's job, especially as you start to get reviews and you're trying to figure out, okay, do I respond to this review? Is it somebody else's responsibility? Do I follow up with the customer? And if you have somebody whose job is to do that, they're the ones that handles it and then figures out, okay, if it is time to reach out to that customer, who's going to be doing the reaching out, who's going to be doing the responding. So makes it easier for everybody, especially when it comes to following up with customers after you get reviews. And I talked about both 3 and 4 really go hand in hand. I talk about making reviews as part of your process as a company, which is important in being able to hold your employees accountable. And because the app comes with a dashboard where you can track everybody's app activity, this makes it very easy because you can see exactly which one of your employees are requesting reviews like they're supposed to. In addition to that, you can incentivize your employees by using the same mechanism. Again, don't incentivize your customers, but you can absolutely reward your employees. You could see, using the dashboard that comes with the app, which your employees are consistently getting good feedback. So even if everyone in your team is asking for reviews like they're supposed to regularly, you're going to see that there's going to be a couple of employees that are getting a higher percentage of customers leaving them great reviews, or they get glowing reviews compared to everyone else. So those employees are going to start to stand out. And there are definitely ways to incentivize them. Maybe you give everybody a raffle ticket for each 5-star review they get. And then at the end of the month, you do a raffle for something like an iPad or a new TV, something along those lines. Maybe the person that requests the most reviews at the end of the week gets free lunch. The person with the most 5-star reviews gets some sort of bonus. I mean, there's a multitude of ways that you can reward your employees for good work. And the nice part about the app is it does give you an insight into your employees' performance that you may not have otherwise had. Because a lot of the reviews that people leave online don't necessarily mention an employee's name, right? So they don't say Susie was wonderful. And so you don't really know that it was Susie that contributed to that 5-star review. However, you'll know exactly from the app's dashboard which employee requested the review and how that resulted into a glowing review. And so you're able to see, okay, which one of your employees are standing out in that regard. Okay. Of course, have an effective follow-up strategy. And this is where it's really helpful to have a person or department in charge of reviews, because you can figure out, okay, who's responding to the reviews, who's following up with customers who maybe didn't have a great experience, like what is the protocol for that, Do you want to follow up with customers who you requested a review from but didn't actually leave a review? And it'll be easy if you actually have a strategy that you're consistent with that you follow. And it'll be easier to follow that if you have one person that's in charge of it. Any questions on that? Another great question. What advice can you give if a customer states they are not very tech savvy and wanting help filling the review out? And so that's a great question. And actually, this is where the app really comes in because they don't really need any kind of tech savvy to fill out the review. It's no different than filling out a form anywhere. As long you can help them click the link. So, in that case, if you send them that text message requesting a review and you can hear that they receive that text message, so you have them open up the text and make sure that they got it and then they click the link. But once they click the link, the rest of that does not really require any kind of tech skill. It's really just the same as filling out any kind of form online. And so all they have to do is fill out their information and actually write the review and hit submit. And this is where the app really comes in because it does not require anything of your customer outside of writing that review. So when they write that review and hit submit, there's nothing else that's required of them. They don't have to go back and verify their contact information. There's nothing else that they have to do. So that's a great question. If for whatever reason they do struggle in filling that out, you definitely don't want to assist them with the actual review writing. You could maybe help them with filling out their contact information because it's probably information that you would have had anyway. So when it comes to putting in their name, their phone number, an email address, and the zip code, which is what's required on a BBB review, you can certainly help with that. But the part that you definitely can't help with is when they have to fill in the stars or write the review. Now, you can certainly explain how the stars work. I think for some people think that 5 stars is intuitive. However, I have seen it where someone thinks that a 1 star is actually good, and because they think the number 1 is better than number 5 because it's a ranking system versus a number of stars. And in that case, I would definitely make sure that they understand that 5 stars is the best, 1 stars are the worst, and show them, how to fill out the stars without actually filling out the stars or filling in the stars for them. But that's a great question. And again, this is where the app is very helpful in that regard because it really is very simple, even for customers who aren't the most tech savvy. Great question. Okay. So now we talked about, the tool to get reviews, how to incorporate the tool in asking for reviews. And now, what do you do when you actually receive a review? And I mentioned very, very early on that customers want businesses to respond to reviews. And in fact, there was a question about, is it okay to use the same template or same generic response to respond to some of the positive reviews, especially if you're getting a lot of them? Okay. Now, do respond to all reviews. It's sometimes you see that people only have these responses to negative reviews because that's where you actually want to respond. But positive reviews are actually really easy to respond to. Just have a few key templates that you use that you kind of cycle out. Maybe there's 1 or 2 areas that you customize a response, but make sure you're thanking your customers for leaving you a positive review. And that goes for like 3-star reviews as well. I know it's, everyone talks about the 5-star reviews and the 1-star reviews, but no one really talks about the 3-star reviews. And so make sure you're responding to those reviews as well. And with each review, whether it was positive, negative, or neutral, don't forget to thank the customer for leaving their feedback. Now, it might go without saying, always, always, always be courteous and polite. That's easy enough to do if the review that you're responding to is positive. Sometimes when the review is unflattering, it might be a little harder to respond in a very polite manner, but just keep in mind that the person who wrote the review is not the only person reading that response. So essentially, your audience becomes everybody. Everyone that can read that review can also read the response. Additionally, this is your opportunity to bring back potentially a disgruntled customer, especially if you didn't realize that that customer was unhappy with your business until you read the review. This is your way to bring them back. And I think some of you all have probably encountered review responses where they responded in such a great way to the disgruntled review that the customer, you can see, has actually gone back and updated, and they will write, I'm updating my previous review because of the way the company responded to me. And so again, this is your opportunity to bring them back. Just because they have a negative review doesn't mean you can't change their perception of your business, and that starts with how you respond to them. Now, that, of course, means that you should absolutely apologize. Apologizing does not necessarily mean admitting fault, but at the very least, it is acknowledging that your customer was frustrated at some aspect of your business. And again, if you are seeing a negative review or negative feedback from your customers, I think it is important to acknowledge that, this isn't typical. I am sorry that you had an experience that is absolutely not, what we consider upholding the standards of our particular business. And again, it's that just acknowledging that kind of frustration can go a long way in the eyes of both the current customers and potential customers that are reading the review. Now, on the flip side, don't get emotional or defensive. Easier said than done. I totally understand, especially for some of you who've had businesses for a very, very, very long time and have owned the business for long enough that you've owned it for longer than reviews have actually been a thing online. Okay, just another thing, again, keep in mind, the reviewer is not the only one reading your response. Even if you've lost that one particular customer, you don't want your response to cause them to cause you to lose your current or potential customers. If you actually are super, super frustrated with responding, while I typically recommend responding as quick as possible with reviews, in the case of a negative review that's making you feel very emotional, give it at least 24, maybe even 48 hours before you respond. At that point, if you still feel like you can't respond in a neutral, courteous way, write out what you actually want to say on a piece of paper. Just completely write it out, and then afterwards rip it up, throw it away, and then you can respond online. Again, the quicker you can respond to reviews, the better, especially if it's a negative review. And you saw early on, I said that customers really expect you to respond within a week of any reviews that you receive. However, in this case, it's better to wait a couple of days and have a more measured response than responding immediately and the response is too defensive. Okay. Don't go into too much detail or make it personal when you're talking to a negative review. In some industries, you're actually not allowed to include any kind of personal details at all. Medical industry, financial services, things like that. You definitely don't want to make it too personal because that looks unprofessional. Always offer to address it outside of the review platform because you never want to start debating the issue online for everyone to see. Now, another great question: how should someone address reviews that contain both praise and criticism? That is a great question. And yes, so I think in that case, you treat it like two different reviews, right? You treat it as if it's both a positive review and a negative review. So thank them for the positive that they brought up. Hey, I thank you for sharing your experience with us. I'm glad that you like this part. And yes, we're very proud of this. And then when it comes to the criticism, say, and then I'm sorry that you had a frustrating experience with this. And in that case, I'm going to have somebody in my team reach out to you to discuss that part further. So in that case, treat it as two separate reviews. Think the positive part and address and acknowledge the positive things that they did bring up. But for the negative, acknowledge their frustration and then offer to take that off the platform. Another question: how far back should someone go with responding to reviews if they have never responded to any reviews? Great question. I get this one all the time. It is 100% dependent on how many reviews you have to respond to. Let's say your reviews are like 2 or 3 years old, but you only have 10 of them. You might as well respond to all 10. And in that case, when you're responding, you should mention that I apologize that it's taken me so long to respond to this review. Don't respond to the review and hope that people don't notice that the review you're responding to is very old. So in that case, if it's a manageable enough amount, you might as well respond to all of them. If you have a lot of reviews, start with maybe 3 months back and then start going further and further back. This also is going to be dependent on your competitors. So depending on how your competitors are handling older reviews, maybe that's what you take a look at. But that's absolutely dependent on how many reviews you have and how feasible it is to go back. At minimum, definitely respond to reviews at least 3 months old, maybe even 6 months old, up to a year. And then anything past a year, that really is just a judgment call. Another thing is if you have very old reviews, but they were very detailed, definitely respond to those. However, if some of your older reviews are more generic or they just say stuff like great or great business, maybe it's not worth responding to that. But if it's a more detailed review that really goes into detail and you're one of those businesses that maybe have a very long cycle where you're working with a customer for a long period of time, then it's okay to go further back in your reviews and respond to those more elaborate reviews. But that's a great question. Okay. And then moving on, of course, don't speculate. If they're not clear on the reason for their frustration, don't start speculating on the actual platform. Again, always ask to communicate off the review platform. Another thing is if they're that vague, they may not have even had, they might not be somebody that's actually a customer. And in that case, depending on the review site that you're dealing with, there's different ways to handle a review that you received that did not come from someone you had a marketplace interaction with. The nice thing about BBB is they do allow you to indicate, hey, I don't think this review came from someone I had a marketplace interaction with. And in that case, the BBB is actually going to ask the reviewer for some sort of proof that they had that interaction with your business. Depending on the review site, the way that you're going to handle that is going to be different. If you specifically have a question about a review that you've gotten on a platform that's not BBB and that you're wondering how to take it up with the platform because you know it wasn't a customer of yours, please feel free to contact us after the webinar, and we will discuss that with you. Any other questions on this? Great. Those were some great questions, especially about all the different ways that you can tackle responding to reviews. Now that you are, making reviews a part of your process and getting reviews and responding to them, there's other ways that you can leverage reviews other than them sitting on your profile. I won't go into too much detail. However, reviews absolutely impact your website search rankings, especially now that a lot of search engines are relying more on AI summaries. They both those AI search summaries and the search engine algorithms themselves prioritize and really put a lot of emphasis on reviews. And so, because to them, that's original content, which search engines value. That's original content that's coming from someone that's not the business. So you're not generating that content, your customers are. It's original content and it's recent content, especially if you're getting reviews frequently and regularly. A lot of that is recent. So just to keep that in mind. Now, the majority of all website traffic, that means people coming to your website, your business's website, is still going to come from organic search. If you don't know the difference between organic search, or not organic search, it really just means organic search just means that it's stuff that's not paid for by ads. I'm sure you've seen ads whenever you search something, whether it's on Google or another search engine that allows ads, you'll see that there's results that are paid for. Okay, organic just means that people got to your website even if you didn't pay for them to. So they didn't click on an ad to get to your website. They got to your website organically. And the majority of website traffic is still coming through that way. So that's very important to hear. Now, if you think about that, third-party reviews carry a lot of weight with search engines. And so review sites and sites like bbb.org, which have a lot of credibility with search engines, rank very highly whenever people are doing any kind of search online. So if you put two and two together, that those review sites carry a lot of factor weight, and all your traffic, your the majority of your website traffic comes from organic search. When you're a customer, you see those reviews ranking highly for a particular business or particular industry. You click on that review site, you see that, this particular business has a lot of reviews. From that review site, you end up jumping to the website. What just happened? What happened was your reviews that you got completely free of charge led somebody to your website. And so it's essentially ends up being free advertising. And I'm not saying you should stop paying for SEO if that's something that you're paying for, and that necessarily should stop paying for ads if you're paying for that. But this is one more thing that's going to complement whatever your digital marketing strategy is, and it's completely free. So what ends up happening is referral from these third-party review sites, because people see what great reviews you have, end up directing them to your website, and from your website, end up contacting you and wanting to do business with you. So again, if you're paying for ads, if you're paying for SEO, the number one goal that you want that to accomplish is for people to go to your website. Well, getting great reviews on third-party review sites can accomplish that goal for free. So again, it's going to complement whatever you're already doing. I just wanted to point that out. If you guys have any questions about that, definitely feel free to ask in the chat. Another way that you can benefit from reviews is you can absolutely feature them on your website. Some review sites allow you to embed the actual review feed with widgets, like Google Business Profile. So, or you can even just copy and paste the actual reviews and feature them and say where they come from. Okay, same thing with social media. You can share your reviews directly to your social feeds. You can print collateral, brochures, anything with your reviews, and you can actually even collect testimonials directly onto your website for you to display. Now, in all of these cases, just double check that depending on where you're getting the reviews from, that you have permission based on the social or the review site, that you're able to actually use those reviews on your website. A lot of them do allow it. Or if you are, getting testimonials from your customers, make sure that you have their permission to share that content. But again, you can get creative with the reviews that you're actually receiving and feature them in multiple ways of marketing on top of actually having them on the review sites themselves. Now, a quick way right now to figure out how reviews are impacting your business is evaluate your baseline today. I call that your current review snapshot. So go ahead, look at your reviews today. After this webinar, take a look. How do you look on the multiple different review sites? How do you look online? In search engines, take a screenshot, put a date on it. Okay, that's what you look like. This is how many reviews you have, what your ratings are, your most recent reviews, all of that. Now, start implementing the tools and tips that we talked about to get more reviews, especially using the BBB Reviews app that's available to you for free as an accredited business. So start implementing those tools, start getting more reviews, and you can see exactly, number one, that you are getting more reviews. You're getting more reviews, your review ratings are going up. But in conjunction with that, if you can get into your Google Search Console, which your web admin should have access to, that is going to show you how much traffic is coming from different sources, and see the change or evaluate the change as you get more reviews. If you're getting more traffic to your website from the various review sites, just like we talked about, okay? Same thing with your Google Business Profile metrics. If you can't access that, there should be somebody in your company that has access to it, but it just shows you how many different views and how many different clicks your Google Business Profile has, and start to evaluate how those metrics change as you get more reviews. So as you increase in review number, are you getting more clicks? Are you getting more views? Are you getting more people clicking on your phone number, on your directions to your shop, to your website? And then, of course, you can always ask, how did you hear about us whenever you have a new customer? And you'll be surprised, or maybe you won't be surprised, how many people are going to say, you know what, I looked you up online and I saw you had great reviews, and that's why I decided to go with you. I tell businesses that all the time. I always make sure to tell businesses, if I'm coming to them because of the reviews they have online, that's exactly why I've decided to choose them. You had great reviews online, and that's why I decided to choose you as a business. So there's a lot of different ways that you can measure how reviews are starting to impact your business. Okay, now there is an upgrade to the free app. I won't go into too much detail here, as you know that the app is 100% free to all accredited businesses. If you're interested in using the app to get reviews on sites in addition to your BBB profile, the app does do that. If that's something you're interested in, please feel free to contact us after the webinar. But it works exactly the same, except you can impact review sites in addition to BBB. The bottom line is reviews make you a better business, okay? If you look for the patterns in your negative reviews, and in fact, there's AI technology that allows you to extract repeating keywords or phrases. And if you see the same, negative feedback over and over again, it tells you exactly where your areas of improvement are. And on the flip side, the positive feedback reinforces what you're doing well. Maybe you were thinking about discontinuing a certain product line or changing a certain policy, but it turns out, based on your reviews, that that's the most popular thing about your business. And so maybe you're less likely to change it at that point, or you're going to alter your strategy based on, what your customers love the most about your business. Neutral reviews, and these are like 3-star reviews, are actually very helpful because they reveal the easiest areas to improve. It's a lot easier to go from a 3-star to a 5-star than from a 1-star to a 5-star. And so things that are mentioned in a neutral review may be things that are easier for you to change as a business rather than like more systemic things that you might see in a negative review. Okay. Of course, if you're an accredited business and you want to get started with the BBB Reviews app, you can log into your BBB business account or contact your local BBB rep. If you come across this webinar and you are not currently accredited and you would absolutely like more information on BBB accreditation, please contact your local BBB office. Here is our contact information. If there's questions that you have on anything we discussed on this webinar, and you would like more information, or you had questions about stuff that I mentioned specifically that impacts your business, that's our website, yourcustomerreviews.com, 888-649-6140, and our email, support@thereviewsolution.com. Okay, Jenny, I'm turning it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Myra. Just real quick, just wanted to let you guys know, if you have not already signed up for our business newsletter, this is a new feature that we have for all of our accredited businesses. With this, it goes out on a monthly basis. We do not bombard your emails on a weekly or hourly basis, but with the information, it is exclusive to you, and it covers the new and updated scam alerts or scams that are going on right now, not only affecting consumers, but also businesses in itself. Talks about local events, different places that will be hosting events or doing certain webinars that we have going on like today. It also gives industry insights and then about discount information. So you can go ahead and scan the QR code now, or also in the follow-up email, I'll have a link for you to go ahead and sign up for it there. But just wanted to let you guys know that's what we have. Here's my contact information. If you have any ideas or would like to see us do a specific webinar on something, or even come out to your business and talk about something specifically like scam prevention, please go ahead, give me a call or email me, and I'd love to discuss those opportunities with you. And on behalf of the Bureau, we would just like to say thank you so much for, again, attending today's webinar and taking the time out to come and learn about reviews, and hope that you're excited to start implementing, if you already haven't started, to start putting and doing reviews, and that you're inspired by everything that Myra discussed today. And Myra, thank you so much for your time and your expertise of talking to all of us about reviews and the impacts that it could have on a business, especially the positive ones. If you would also just take a moment, fill out our survey. We're always striving to do better and be the best. So please give us your feedback on today's webinar. With that, if there are no other questions, we will say goodbye for now, and we hope to see you again soon. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.